Greetings, this is Frank, also known as Booga on the online forums. And just like you, I am a role-playing game master. And I've been GMing online role-playing games for a while now. And over the time, I looked for ways to actually be able to share a soundtrack and some special effects, during games to help with immersion. This tutorial is exactly designed for that. This is the method I've been using for years now to actually share a soundtrack or sounds and mix them with my voice during a role-playing game session. Most of the time, I use Teamspeak to actually, conference with the players. It's got a lot of features that actually are perfect for role-playing games, including having several channels to be able to isolate yourself with another player and take them, if they split the group. It's got also the ability, which are very useful for streaming sound, which is to be able to have more than one channel connected from one computer, which is going to be very, very handy for this tutorial. You could use probably similar methods with software like Mumble or Skype. However, Teamspeak is very handy for that. It's very easy to have two channels, and it allows you to create profiles and bookmarks, which means you can actually set up your system, once, and then after that, on the further sessions, you can just, recall those profiles, and it will load all the settings you need without having to reconfigure everything. It's a very easy way to do that. I also tried, for example, using Roll20, which has its own built-in audio and video chat system. Actually, when I use Roll20, I disable the sound from Roll20, just use the video and use the sound from Teamspeak, which typically actually stays, pretty good as far as synchronization. The lip sync is actually quite good, and this way I can actually, have the audio and the webcam from Roll20, the sound from Teamspeak, which allows me to stream sounds, because it's not very easy to do with Roll20, because it does not allow you without kind of using tricks to have to connect more than once from the same computer into a Roll20 session. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the various tools or softwares that you need to actually do that. So the first tools is that you need some kind of virtual device which will simulate basically a virtual audio cable, which will allow you to link a sound software such as Winamp or virtual video LAN VLC, and then plug it basically into Teamspeak. There are two of them that I use the most. My favorite is virtual audio cable. Virtual audio cable is actually a shareware. It costs about I think $25 in the cheapest form, for the minimal support. It's designed by independent developer, and this is the website you see here on the recording, and basically it's a lifetime license. Once you buy it, you can actually use it on as many computers as you want. It works without any problem under Vista, Windows 7 and Windows 8, its latest version. Earlier version supported Windows XP if you're still using it. I've been using it since Windows XP, and right now I'm using Windows 7. It works with both 64 bits and 32 bits operating systems, and it's very easy to set up. It can be used for various things, not only for the tutorial today. I've used it to mux sound, to actually output sound from one software to more than one device at the same time. It's got all kinds of uses. Today, for the tutorial, we're just going to use its basic feature, which just requires to install the software, which installs automatically a peripheral called a virtual audio cable that will be listed in your recording and playback systems in the Windows sound system, and that's all you need. The second tool that you can use, which is free, is on this website here, the VB Audio software. It creates a similar peripheral, which you can see here. It creates a cable input here, both under playback and recording, and that's basically all we need for the tutorial. This is a free tool. You can download it from this website and install it. I noticed that the quality was not 100% as good as the one with virtual audio cable, and also sometimes there's more than one version, that you can download from this website. I had to try a couple versions before it worked for my specific configuration. However, the advantage is that it's 100% free, so that's an advantage. It creates only one cable by default, whereas virtual audio cable allows you to create more than one cable. But like I said earlier, for this tutorial, all you need is one. So if you don't want to spend money and you just want to try that, you can actually just use this one. Something to consider also for virtual audio cable, there is a trial version you can download here. It's got all the features except when the cable is in use, you will hear from time to time a playback loop that says this is virtual audio cable, a feminine voice saying that. So if you hear that when you play your music, you're not crazy. It's just that actually you're using the trial version, and that's something that to incite to motivate you to buy the full version. Okay, but you can at least try the single version. It's got the trial version has all the features of the full version. You can use up to 3 cables with it, and it's a good way to see if a virtual audio cable is compatible with your configuration. So far I never had any problem, but it's good to test before you buy. And this way, if you try the trial version, it's working well for you, it does everything you need, you can buy the new version, the full version, from this website. So now the next software you will need to actually use this tutorial is of course the Teamspeak Client. I use Teamspeak 3, it's the latest version. It's a free audio conferencing software with a lot of nice features. The client is free. It exists in both 32 and 64 bits as well. It works very well for various operating systems. I think it works under Windows, Mac, and Linux. However, the virtual audio cable software and the VB audio software they use are only for Windows. I know that for Macs there is another software which is also free as well, which is called, I think, Soundflower, which does basically the same thing as virtual audio cable and VB audio. So if you use a Mac, use Teamspeak 3 for Mac and try this Soundflower software. For Linux, I do not have any suggestion because I know nothing about this operating system. Next, once you have Teamspeak 3, we'll get back to it later to see how you configure it. The next software you will need, of course, is one or more softwares to actually play music. I use a combination during my games. For my audio soundtracks, the music itself, I use an old version of Winamp, that I bought a long time ago. This is a very, very basic version here, and it's great. It does everything that I need for my role-playing game needs. I'm able to actually create various moods and locations and stuff like that. I just have to double-click, and it loads automatically a playlist in a random way. This way, for a specific scene, it does not always play the same thing all the time in a loop. It gets boring for the players and for the GM as well. So I like that feature in Winamp, and it's very easy to use. The next software that I really like, and that it's just kind of a classic for playing music on computers, is VLC Media Player, Videoland. Okay, it's another software. I use it less often, because it's not as easy to use as far as I'm concerned, and it doesn't have that nice multiple playlist system that I like so much with Winamp. But it's another tool that you could use. The next, we're going to move on to the tools that actually are able to play more like, designed to play more like soundtracks. One of the classic ones is SceneSound, which is a free software that you can download using .NET framework, and it allows you to load basically scenes pre-made and load your sounds from your library into them, and then you can load these separate scenes. You can create loops, you can distort the sound, you can do all kind of things. I would really encourage you to go check it out. It's a great software, especially since it's free. You can donate on their website also to help them develop it. But it's a great tool. We're not going to delve into how to use it. There's some great tutorials on their website. but I'm going to show you how to configure it to use it with this tutorial. And last, it's another software that I really like to use for my sound effects, but it's probably not something you can use anymore. It's called RPG Atmosphere, and it's got some built-in atmosphere, environment atmosphere that you can use here, and you can create your own with your own sounds and special effects. And it's a pretty nice one, and I'll show you how to configure it as well. All right, so now that we've seen kind of the who is actually going to be part of this tutorial, let's see actually how you set that up. So the first thing to do is, of course, install VB Audio or Virtual Audio Cable softwares. So those are, just, simple installation softwares. You set up, you download them from the website, you actually run the setup, and, you basically keep all the default options. Typically it's recommended to reboot afterwards. And after that, if you look under your configuration in your sound system in Windows, you will see here that both under playback and recording, you now have here, those are the 4 cables I created for a virtual audio cable, but by default it will only create 1, and that's all you need for a tutorial, so you don't have to create more. And then if I look here, this is the cable created by installing VB Audio software. Okay, so you see they coexist actually fairly well. I have both on my system, and you should see the same thing under recording here. Cable audio and line 1 from virtual audio cable. Okay, that's all you need. You need one or the other. You don't need to have both. Once you have that installed, basically you can close that or put it aside, like I'm going to do now. And you can now move on to the next step of the configuration. The next step is to configure your sound player. All right, each sound player is a bit different for that, and basically what you have to do is configure the default output so that the default output of your sound player is going to be this virtual audio cable, that you just install on your system. This way, every time you play something, it will go through that, and once you configure Teamspeak correctly, it will go straight into Teamspeak so that you can actually use, share those sounds with your players. All right, so for Winamp, I right-click into there, I go into Options, and then Preferences. Then in the left list here, I go to Output. I select Nullsoft Direct Sound Output and double-click on it. And then here, as you can see, I have selected Line 1 Virtual Audio Cable. If I was using VB Audio, I would use instead Cable A input. And now I click OK. All right, and close. And now every time I'm going to play some music, it's going to go straight into Virtual Audio Cable 1 or the Cable Audio A in the other configuration. All right, so now if I want to do the same thing for, let's see, for VLC, I go to Tools, Preferences, Audio, here on the left side, and I switch from automatic to wave out or DirectX. Let's go with DirectX actually. And then here under device, I can select either, my line 1 for virtual audio cable or cable A input for VB audio cable A. And I select that, I hit save, and then same thing, the sound of when I play some music will always go to those virtual cables and then into Teamspeak when it's configured. All right, now I minimize that. I'm going to hide this. Now for scene sound, I go to Audio, and then here it's Audio Output Device, and I'm going to select line 1 virtual audio cable. All right, and this way, it will go automatically over there. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for RPG Atmosphere. It's under Options, Sound Card Select, line 1 virtual audio cable, apply, and close. All right. For this software, typically you have to restart it when you change the output, but that's not going to be too much of a problem. And in this tutorial, All right, so now we've configured our software here. The next step is going to configure Teamspeak. All right, that's an important part, that maybe the trickiest, but once it's set up, you don't have to think about it until you reformat your hard drive and you reinstall Teamspeak. Even if you update Teamspeak, you will remember normally your profiles, so that won't be a problem. So the first thing you're going to do first is to configure your capture and playback profiles so that they can be reused within Bookmarks. You open Teamspeak here, you go to Settings and Options. All right. The two tabs here on the left side that will interest us is Playback and Capture. We're first going to go to Capture. With Capture, the nice thing is that you can, and Playback as well, you can create profiles that you can then reuse, later on when you create bookmarks to go into such and such server. So I will keep as my default profile, which is the one that will be loaded by default on any new bookmark that you create. This is going to be the microphone from my headset. Okay, here it's called Screaming Bee Audio because I'm using a software, for voice modulation called Morphvox. But otherwise, that could be, for example, the microphone from my headset. Okay, but here basically you use the one that you want, Teamspeak to capture your voice with. All right, so you select that. Then after that, depending on people, you can either choose voice activation detection, which is here, or push to talk, depend on your preference. Typically it's not recommended to use continuous transmission because your players will hate you, when you do that, because you're always outputting, when you sneeze or when you've got some sound in the background, it's not fun for anyone. Okay, so, I would recommend voice activation detection or push to talk. All right, so when you select voice activation detection, you can choose and I recommend to do that by testing by using the begin test button, but you can choose the sensitivity of Teamspeak, which determine when it will start detecting, so that, for example, if you move some papers on your desk, it will not activate the microphone, but if you speak, it will. If you go to push to talk instead, you can select the key to on your keyboard or on your mouse. Actually, you can even choose a mouse button, I believe, that will actually activate your playback when you talk. All right, so for me, I prefer voice activation detection. It works well for me. The second profile, now we're going to actually create have a new profile. So basically, what you would do is click on the plus here, okay, and I'm going here to create a profile called VAC2. It's for virtual audio cable 2 because I already have one configured. I don't want to remove it. It's working nice for me. So I'm going to show you how to configure a new one. So we do that, and then we're going to keep default settings here. It's going to be okay. So this profile here is going to the profile you're going to use to actually on your second channel to be able to capture the sound coming out of your software and coming through those virtual audio cables. So here I'm going to select the capture device, and if I use virtual audio cable, I'm going to use line 1 virtual audio cable. If you use instead the VB audio software plugin here, we're going to use this one, cable A output here. So I'm going to do it with line 1 virtual audio cable. Here I'm almost done. For the sound, for the sound channel, I'm going to use continuous transmission. The reason for that is that if I don't do that, either I will have to remember to press a specific key even when I'm playing music in the background, which is kind of tedious. If I use voice activation, if the music gets too low, it will start cutting off and that will look weird. Okay, so I always put continuous transmission. The reason why I do that is that if I don't want to play anything from my audio channel, I just stop the audio player. I stop the replay on Winamp, for example, or in Sounscene, and then nothing comes out of that channel, that's clean, there's not going to be a background sound, it's not like you have a microphone. So that's why for my secondary profile here, the one to capture your music from, I use continuous transmission. So I've got this here. You see here that I actually do not keep any of the other options on, neither those ones here, it's all unchecked here. Okay, and then now I'm happy with here. I click apply, and now you see that I have, in addition to my default, I have my new VAC2 profile. Okay. Now I'm going to worry about my playback. Playback is when sounds come from the TeamSpeak, either the other people talking or actually my sound channel, what is going to come into my ears, So here, basically you'll have to, you can just use your default configuration. Okay, you just need one profile, contrarily to the capture, and that profile is going to be whatever you use to capture, to get the sound. So for example, that could be your speakers in your headset, or that could be your sound card, speakers, Realtek, High-Tech for me. Okay, here I use line 2, but you don't have to use that at all. It's because of my specific configuration. Basically, whatever has to go, whatever peripheral, device you use to replay sound when you use TeamSpeak, that's what you're going to set here, and you just need one profile. Okay, here you can configure the device volume and stuff like that. That's the basic stuff. Okay, so I just need that profile here. So now I click OK. I'm done with that part. At that point now, I need to do one more thing before I set up my bookmarks. The next thing I need to do is create identities for an extra identity within TeamSpeak. The reason for that is that if you connect more than once from the same computer and into TeamSpeak using different tabs, it will use by default the same identity for all the tabs. So if you connect onto the same server twice, once for your voice, once for your sound effects, it will actually use the same identity for both. The problem is that when people try to change the volume of your voice or the volume of your music, if you change one of them, the TeamSpeak server will think it's actually the same people and it will adjust both at the same time, which kind of defeats the purpose because sometimes the music is too loud or the voice is too loud from your GM, and your player should be able to adjust both independently. So you need two separate identities so that actually the TeamSpeak server will consider them as two different individuals, and people will be able to adjust each of them individually. Same thing if they mute. If you don't create two separate identities, it will mute both at the same time if you mute one of them. If you don't want to listen to the music, for example, because it annoys you, you could mute the player could mute the music channel, and then at that point he would also do the player, the voice GM as well, which would be a bummer. So as you can see here, I have my default identity, which is what you will always have when you install TeamSpeak, but also I created a bruitage, which is sound effect, basically in French, and I created a new one. So to do that, you create add. You see a new identity here. I'm going to call sound effect, okay, and he created a new ID here, nickname, I'll call it sound effect as well, and then now I'm okay. Now I have my default identity and my sound effect identity, which I'll be able to attribute to two different channels. And same thing, that's all configured in the bookmark, so you don't have to do it every time. It's just a one-time setup. And once it's done, it will be a lot easier for people to adjust one and not the other. So now, we've got our profiles created. We got our separate identities. Now it's time to create bookmarks, so we can easily attribute a profile and an identity and tell what server to log into. And we're going to create two bookmarks for the server we're going to connect to. One of them will be to use to create a channel, to connect into using your voice as a GM, and the other will be to stream your music using your music players. So we go to bookmarks and then to manage bookmarks. Next step, here I have a lot of bookmarks already, so basically I'm going to demonstrate by creating first a bookmark that has, to connect just my voice, so using my microphone and my headset, when I connect to a server. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add a bookmark, and first actually I'm going to duplicate this bookmark so that actually it will be easier to create it rather than input everything. So I'm going to use this one. Now I have, you see, twice this one, and I'm going to edit it by changing the details here. So I'm just going to create 2 here, so we know that it's the new one here. So I've got here the address of my server. You should already know that what server you connect to. The nickname I use, when I connect, and the Game Master Booga. And here the server password. Next thing here comes in here. If you do not see this part, okay, you just see this part, you need to click on More, and then you will see all the details. The important here is to select that part here. So as you can see here, because all my default profiles were for the sound were for actually the microphone and the identity for the default identity. All I have to select here is default, and the important here is my identity is default. My capture profile is also the default capture profile, and my playback profile is also my detail profile. I just have to click Apply. Okay, here, and now this is the bookmark I will use when I connect to my server, when I just want my voice as a GM. Okay, and it's everything is configured there. Now I need to create one for the sound effects as well. So this is this one. I'm going to duplicate here. Here we go, and modify the new copy. So I'll just copy it, called 2 here. All right. So this is the address of the server. This is an internal server, which is why I have an IP address here. That's all. Okay. I call it Britage, which is sound effect. So we're going to call it, sound effect. I put a dot in front. It's not necessary. It's just because this way it will always be listed at the top of a list of players, when everybody's connected inside of the same channel, inside the same room, in the TeamSpeak server. That's the only reason. Here, I got a password here. Now, this important part is here. The second identity I just created. I don't want to use default because I don't want them to be considered as one item by the TeamSpeak server. So that's why I created this new identity is here. Second one is the capture profile. So here, I look for the one that I just created, which is VAC2. And here we are. So this is the capture profile using the virtual audio cable or VB audio software plugin, depending on what you're using for your configuration. And this is what actually will stream the sound into TeamSpeak. Then for the playback device, very important, basically this channel is never going to listen. It's just to playback actually. So I just select none. This way, whatever comes in, goes nowhere. So it's perfect. All right. And here, that's pretty much all I need to configure. So those 3 elements here, sound effect is a separate identity, its own profile using the virtual audio cable, and no playback at all. Now I can create apply. Here we go, and OK. All right, now basically at that point I have configured TeamSpeak once and for all. All I have to do when I want to connect to my TeamSpeak server and use those 2 channels is to use bookmark here. And first I connect once using my bookmark that I just created, which is the Frank Game Master here. So here it is here.
Connected.
All right, so I get my little warning because it's out of date. So I connect it to my home server here. As you can see, it went straight into the right place. And here we go. So we've got this. So here I can talk and players could hear me. So this is the channel that actually uses my microphone and headset. If I stop talking, the little light should stop as well. Here it did. Okay, here we go. Because it's not in continuous speak, it's in voice activation in my case. Next thing, and now that's the important step. I go to the bookmarks. I look for my new bookmark that I just created, that is supposed to be for the sound effects. And very important, do not just, you right click on it, do not just connect. If you connect, it will disconnect your first connection, and then you will actually get this one instead. So that kind of defeats the purpose. You need to have both at the same time on the same server. You want to connect in a new tab.
User
and
here
we are. And as you can see here, now I've got here my voice, and that's how I listen. And here I've got my little sound effect bookmark. As you can see here, it's there, and now it's in continuous talk. If I stop talking, you can see that actually the sound effect is still on because it's in continuous playback, and that's exactly how we want it. However, as you can see, I'm not playing any music from any of my sound players, so basically when I don't play anything, you don't hear anything from it. There's no static or background sound. So here we go. So now we're set. Very important also, if you want to be able to either be able to chat with your other players using the Teamspeak chat feature, or if you want to be able to adjust for example the sound effect of that from Teamspeak, you need to make sure that the highlighted tab is this one. You can click here and click here, but the one that you're going to use during the game is probably going to be this one. Okay, as you can see, when I do that, I can right click on sound effect and I can do all kind of things, but one that's important, I can actually change and adjust the volume for that specific channel, and I can do that as the GM. It will only affect me. Each player that is connected to the same room on the same server can actually also change the volume, and he can do that independently for this channel that I'm connected to, and this channel as well. So if one of them is too low or too high, they can adjust that without actually asking you to adjust your sound or anything like that for if it's too loud or not, because everybody has a different configuration. Some people like loud music, some people don't. So that's nice to be able to configure that. So now the next thing we need to do is to test it. I am going to bring in my Winamp here. And let's see if I select the music here. And as you can see here, and I can put it a bit louder. And I move. And as you can see here, I'm going to lower here a little bit. As you can see here, the sound actually that we hear now is the sound actually that comes through Teamspeak. So that's actually exactly what the players would hear. Okay, of course they can adjust the volume on their sound by doing right-click, change volume here. But that's what they will hear. So that's also the nice advantage using this method, is that you hear exactly what the player hear, and you can hear if it's too loud or something like that. You can adjust also on your side, although they can do it as well, but it's a nice advantage. So now I'm going to lower it here, or actually I could just do that and change volume. That little interface appears here. As you can see, I can really reduce it, or I can crank up the volume. Here you go, and as you can see, now we've got that configured. And from now on, all you have to do when you open Teamspeak and you connect to your server first using the first bookmark that we created, and then you do a right-click in the bookmarks and connect in new tab. Very important. Even now today, I often make the mistake at the beginning of a session, and of course it's easy to fix. You just reconnect again, but also make sure that once you have connected with this one, typically it's the second one, that you re-click here so that actually that you have a control this way, and that you are using your main channel. So this way, if I want to mute or something like that, I'll be able to do that. And also, of course, I can do that here. If I want to completely stop, I could stop that here, obviously, and stop the music. But also here, I can keep the music playing, and I could just mute here, if I remember well. I think it's here. Here we go. Here we go. So here, I'm playing music. I can crank up the volume a lot as you want. That microphone is mute and is not going to talk. Okay, as you hear, I'm going to put it back. I'm going to, as you can see, it's back here. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to stop that here. And as you can see, so I had that here. Now with the same configuration, because I configured all my devices to go through either virtual audio cable 1 or VB audio cable A. Okay, now I can use a combination of softwares, and their sound all get mixed into virtual audio cable 1 or VB audio software plugin, and they go through in Teamspeak through that. Let's do it with Scene Sound. I will configure right here. There you go. and the sound, same thing, goes through that specific channel here. If I want to stop it, here you go, as you can see. Here we are. Okay, you can do it this way. All right, I'm going to reload RPG Atmosphere to do a little demonstration with RPG Atmosphere as well. All right, it's loading. There we go. So hopefully now it works. I will stop Scene Sound, minimize it, and let's try to see now. There you go. And now we have a nice coastal sound in the background, which is one of the fortes of RPG Atmosphere, is creating like atmospheric sounds, but are not loops. They use random sounds. Some of them play in loop, and some of them are random for the sound of animals like seagulls. And it's a beautiful software. Alas, out of development, so I do not think it's available anymore. So here we are. So now we've got the full configuration here. I believe now that we have everything configured the way we want. I'm going to stop that master step here. Here we go. Something also to add. Also something you could do, and I recommend as well, when you go to the Windows sound system configuration, which happens if you normally you should have in your system tray, the bottom right of your taskbar next to the clock in Windows, there should be a little white icon looking like a speaker. If you right click on it, you'll be able to access this window by either choosing playback or recording device. And in that case, if you go to communication here, it's very important to select do nothing, so that actually sometime you open Teamspeak and somehow or Skype is running in the background and sounds seems muted actually when you try to actually when somebody is talking, the sound from your sound effect software seem to be muted or abnormally low. It's because by default I believe it's on that configuration, which actually drops by 80% the sound effect. So do nothing is very important, and I click OK, and the same thing. It's a fire forget one. It will stay that way, and so far I haven't found any adverse effect to doing that. The next thing you want to do is still right-clicking on that little taskbar icon, looking like the little speaker in the system tray. If you go to Open Volume Mixer, you'll see here that, and now we're going to extend it so we can see everything. If I select here my Light One virtual audio cable, you'll see that I can see here the various software that I have that are actually sound output, and you can configure the volume of output, independently. As you can see here, I just turned on Winamp, the sound to play in Winamp. Here we go, and you can see that it appeared here. So, for example, if you want to mix and mix various software, you can do that directly in each software, or you could actually do that kind of in a, it will last longer if you do that. It will kind of set the maximum bar for this, and also you can also determine, change the general volume of line one here. However, typically it's better to let your player do that by right-clicking here and doing change volume. I think it's more constructive because even if you set it right for you here, each player will be different. So, but it's your call. All right. So here we are. That pretty much concludes this tutorial. I hope it will be useful to you to run your games. Make sure to press the little like button in YouTube if you like this video, and share it with your friends and anybody that wants to GM games online. Personally, I know that I actually have been using for 5 or 6 years sound effects and music with my online games, and I cannot do without. It had so much immersion. It's something that is actually better actually when you play online than when you play around a table, in my experience, because you have a captive audience and you can really use that for hints and fun effects. I have some example that I remember from some of my previous game is that, for example, players were walking in the in a forest, and I had this very bucolic sound loop playing using RPG Atmosphere, and then suddenly I stopped the sounds of the birds, and one of the players noticed it. and they knew something was amiss. And that was great because, rather than telling that to them, just let them discover. And that's a great thing. An example of a great thing, you can do that. Of course, the music and sound effects also, and soundtrack can also add a lot to your drama and, put a mood in your game. So if you have any questions, make sure to actually, put comments, and I will be glad to answer them. If you need more questions, if I forgot to say something, or if you're having some trouble using this configuration, and I'll make sure to also put the links to the couple tools that I've mentioned here, the ones that may be hard to find. I will actually put a link in the description of this tutorial. All right. Maybe there will be more tutorials to come for other tricks I've learned over the few years of GMing, online. If I find something useful to share. And until then, enjoy that tutorial. Enjoy your games online and have fun. Take care. Booga out.